citizens, how are you? You doing good? I said, hey, citizens, how are you? How you doing? Man, you sound good. Sit down. So great to be here. We do get the privilege of seeing a stack of churches around the world. Last year, we traveled 260 nights outside of Australia. And so what I'm about to say, I don't say to carry favor, where we've got stacks of stuff going on. I say because I've got a context and I want to really encourage you. We had dinner last night with Pastor Chris and Tatum, and they're just, apart from being so easy to hang out with. We laughed and we were just carrying on. It was just a really wonderful night. But what we've got is a perspective. We work with scores of honestly outstanding leaders around the world. Many of them in their 30s, early 40s. And I want you to know, and I know you know it, but it's sometimes good to hear from an outside voice. When God was choosing a lead pastor couple to lead Citizens Church, where you would find your home, He was very kind to you. Amen. He was very kind to you. This couple here are some of the most outstanding leaders that we honestly get the privilege to work with anywhere around the world. And we love them, and we're excited about, honestly, the ridiculous journey that you guys are on. 5 years. 5 years. Many churches are still trying to break through, and 200, 300, 5 years. Like well over 1,000 people, maybe nearly 2,000 people associated with the church. And we've got Beaumont that didn't exist, that those of you that have sown previously into the multiply kind of offering, this is, a lot of people wouldn't do what you guys have done. A lot of churches go, you know what, we need a building first, then we can talk about reaching more people in other campuses. No, not Citizens, not Pastor Chris and Tatum. It's like, no. Buildings will never drive us. It's always about people and reaching new communities. So you planted before you had your own building. Honestly, I'm genuinely excited about this next season. You know, year on year, years come around, and we go, oh yes, the end of the year, we do the offering thing. No. Like when you see, everyone go, pew. When you see what God has got, the natural overflow of your heart is to want to sow into that. When you can see it's not about numbers, it's about thousands and thousands of families, several campuses, buildings all over the place, bringing hope to a hurting community, then what that does, you just want to overflow with that. And so I'm delighted today to flow in fact, even to kind of kick off your Multiply series. Valerie and I think if you've been here before and heard us, we love our grandkids. We've got 3 grandkids. I think there's a shot of them here. I don't know whether you can see it clearly. That's Aubrey. That's Frederick and Montague. And the 2 boys have just moved back in with us and their mum and dad because we're hardly ever there. And so I said to Freddie, when you come back and live at Papa's house, listen, you're not allowed to come into bed in the morning and wrestle Papa, okay? He said to his mum, he said, I'm going to do it. I said, because I think you might hurt me. He said, I got some ninja moves, Papa. So we're just having a great time. But they remind me. They remind me of the fact that I'm not here for me. I sat in the early days of Hillsong. It was called Hills Christian Life Center there. From 70 people to 5,000. And you're kind of in the middle there somewhere. And I heard Pastor Brian week on week share, we're a generational church. We're about generations. And I go, yeah, that's kind of cool. And I sowed into that. My wife and I sowed into that. We were key executive pastors there, blah, blah, blah. But I've sat in that same church now with my grandkids on my knee, worshiping Jesus. This generation's legacy thing is not just playing games, it's for real. I know some of you here in your 20s and 30s think, grandkids, give me a massive break. I just want to get through school or college. You're in a really exciting season. And I love the fact that the series is called Multiply. We're going to talk about the seeds into that legacy. And one of the things that the enemy honestly does, he blinds us to the stealth of the fact that we're living for generations. We travel a lot, as I said. I was on a plane. Mostly I'm a friendly guy. But if I've been working flat out, the last thing I want to do is chat all night. I just want to sleep. Got on an airplane in LA. I was heading back to Sydney. And so the key for those frequent travelers, no eye contact. So this guy got on. He's putting his bag up in the overhead. And I said, "G'day." And I'm like, as I'm saying, it's like, give yourself an uppercut. You don't want to talk. So he says, "G'day" back. I realized he's Australian. I said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name's Wes." I said, "What do you..." And as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, shut the heck up. I said, "What do you do, Wes?" He said, "I run a zoo." "You run a zoo? What sort of zoo do you run?" He said, "I run Australia Zoo." He said, "I'm Steve Irwin's best buddy." He said, Steve was now passed away, had now passed away. And I said, "Wow." Like, I'm thinking, now you're not going to get any sleep tonight, dude. I've got you to talk to all night about the Australia Zoo. And I found myself even wanting to talk, crikey, like Steve Irwin. And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, I'm a poisonous snake expert." I said, "What's a poisonous snake expert been doing in America?" He said, "I'm on vacation." I said, "Well, what were you doing He said, "I've been chasing rattlers out the back of Arizona." I said, "Yep, after my own heart, brother. I love doing that on holidays too." I said, "Have you ever had any close calls with big crocs?" He said, "Well, actually," he said, "Steve and I were cleaning out the croc lagoon. There was a canal between the other lagoon, and there was a big 15-foot male called Graham. If ever you want a pet croc, Graham, good name. Graham. And the guy who was on lookout, he goofed off. And so as Wes is cleaning the side of the thing, Graham comes up behind him, and snaps him across the butt and the top of the legs. And he said 180 stitches or something like that. And he pulls out his mobile phone and starts showing me a photo of all the stitches. And this was pretty awkward because I'm going to be sitting next to this dude for the next 14 hours. He said, "I've got more photos." I said, No, it's okay. I've got that indelibly printed in my mind. Here's the point. The guy goofed off. And they stopped seeing. He stopped watching. The crocodile came up like stealth and snapped across his butt. Steve Irwin, incidentally, jumped on his back, put a pick handle in his mouth. That's not Wes's mouth, that's the crocodile's mouth, and saved his life. I just about stood up in the middle of the plane and said, "I love you, Steve Irwin." The enemy loves blinding us. He loves cutting short. Peter talks about this. He said, you've got to be careful not to be nearsighted. Nearsighted means we're all about the here and now, me, myself, and I, moi, here. Whereas in reality, even the decisions you're making now have implications generationally. You see, God, who's an amazing planner, laid up the future of the Savior of the world like generations ago, like 20 or 30 generations before. In fact, one of the things I thought, how do I kind of start this message? And I thought what I should do is just read all the genealogies in the Bible. No? I'm going to read a little bit. Matthew chapter 1. Let me go to the good bit first, then we'll go to the sketchy part. Matthew chapter 1, verse 16. It says, Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary. Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah. I mean, you can't get a better crew right there. Mary, perfect Mary, pure as the driven snow. Joseph, what a guy. I mean, not every guy has his fiancée come to him and say, Joe, I'm pregnant and God did it. Not a good day at the office for Joe right there. And Jesus, what can I say? Like, this is a beautiful end to the lineage of Jesus. But if you dive back up a little bit, you see, here it says Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. We want to dive in a few minutes into that whole notion of Boaz, Obed. But first of all, come with me on this. My daughter, our oldest daughter, is a film producer. I don't know much about making films, but I know in the middle of the design phase somewhere, there's a casting. So come with me on the poetic license here a little bit. Imagine a casting crew headed up by Gabriel the angel for the lineage of Jesus. And so they say, Jesus, we love the last bit. Good job. We know you're omnipotent and all that kind of stuff. But the crew and I were just, Gabriel gets pushed forward. Gabriel, who's the chairman of the selection committee for the casting, he says, God, there's this Rahab. I don't know whether you read her application. Did you notice anything peculiar about under occupation? Like she has got a red candle outside of a house, not a white one. She's actually a prostitute. God, we understand grace and all that kind of stuff, but we were thinking maybe Sally, who's a beautician just around the corner. She goes to the temple all the time. She'd be a lot more like Mary. We thought that. God's face is unmoved. Right, okay. Let's move on from there. We're good with Rahab. What about David, the father of Solomon, whose mother was Bathsheba, unmentioned there, but Uriah's wife? God, that's a messy one, right? Bathsheba, David should have been out to war. He's out on the roof looking down at Bathsheba, baptizing herself, and it didn't end well. Adultery, murder. We were thinking kind of Elizabeth, who's 3 doors down, is a checkout chick. She's also God's unmoved. Here's the great message there. God doesn't make accidents in the genealogy, in the lineage. His message here to you and I, these thousands of years later, is that your past failures, sins, and mistakes need never dictate your generational future. That's the heart of God for you. God's future for you is never limited to the stuff that's gone in your past or in the generations past. God looks at you and says, no, come on. The plans that I do have for you, they're to give you a future and a hope. And I know that's often out of context, that verse, but the reality is it's true still. When God thinks about you, he thinks about a powerful destiny in your life. Let's have a quick look. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Let's have a look at the book of Ruth here. I think there might be a few verses that pop up on the screen. But let me just read you here the end of the story, just what happens before, the wedding day and all that kind of stuff. It's so beautiful. It says in Ruth chapter 4, verse 13, so Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. And when he made love to her, the Lord enabled them to conceive, and he gave birth to a son. She gave birth to a son. And the women said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord who has this day not left you without a guardian or a kinsman redeemer. See, this whole passage, in fact, this whole book, it never actually mentions the name of God. But it's all about God and his workings. It really is very, very powerful. It's got a huge economic theme. It's got a huge theme about how someone can get on in the midst of their life. And here we see the end of the story where they have a little baby. He's called Obed. Naomi gets to raise him as well. And Obed, he was the father of Jesse and the father who became the father of David. So he's grandfather of David. And we could say, and they all lived happily ever after. But the weird part of this is, if you know the backstory, it's going to give you great hope in the seeds of your legacy that you're sowing right now. Because if we talk about what happened, Naomi was married to a guy by the name of Elimelech. I like saying that, Elimelech. And they had 2 sons, Chilion and Mahlon, and they went down, because there was a famine in the land of Israel, they went down to Moabite territory, which were actually the arch enemy. And there was food there. So they shifted. And when they were there, the 2 sons, Chilion and Mahlon, met 2 women, Orpah and Ruth. And so there they were, living happily as 3 couples, mum and dad, 2 sons and their respective wives, until dad dies. Elimelech dies and leaves Naomi with the 2 kids and their spouses, 2 boys and their spouses. 10 years later, the 2 boys die. So the 3 girls are left together. Now, I say that in just headlines to indicate to you that's more than just oh, poor girls. Like, this means economic destitution. They have no visible means of support. And so Naomi has an idea. She says, look, I'm going to go back up to Israel. I've heard on the grapevine that God has blessed his people and there's food there now. And so they all leave town. A little way out of town, she turns around and says, stop. I've been thinking, you're Moabite women. You're best to go back to your Moabite homes, meet some good Moabite boys, and you're going to be looked after there. I'll be fine up in Israel. She says it not once, but 4 times. So she, naturally speaking, she's trying to dissuade them. After the 4th time, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and shot through back with the family. But Ruth says this famous passage that some of you may have heard. Ruth says, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. She said, where you go, I want to go too. Where you stay, I'm going to dwell there as well. Your people, listen to this. This is a powerful prophetic, pivot moment in her life. Your people will be my people and your God will be my God too. Many commentators would argue that was kind of her conversion moment. That was her major epiphany of boom. Now, here's where you're being called upon right now. As you're thinking about what Pastor Chris and Tate will be sharing over the next couple of weeks, today's not ka-ching, going to take the offering real quick, come on, in an emotional spurt. Well, you've been given 2 or 3 weeks to really pray. But here's what you will do today. Many of you will make a decision to open up your heart and honestly say, God, I really do want to hear what you've got to say on this. Because I think that this season, I've got a real sense, not just the 2020 thing and so forth, the end of a decade, I've got a real sense there's a prophetic pivot moment for citizens and there's a prophetic pivot moment for all of those that call Citizens Church your church home. So in the same way that Naomi was being logical and Orpah, no one's criticizing Orpah, it made a lot of sense. But Ruth went, I'm going to follow my heart. I'm not going to just work it through logically. I'm going to express faith in this moment of time. We see the story that once she did that, here's what happens, and here's what I believe we can see happen. Once she made that major prophetic shift, wow, they just happened to go back to Israel at harvest time. Ruth just happened to go to a field of a dude by the name of Boaz, who just happened to be, note the big prophetic shift, a kinsman redeemer. In other words, a close relative who could marry her and buy back all their property. So again, economic, there's a redemption there. He just happened to be on that day when she was there, he came onto the field. He just happened to take, you'd say this, a shine to her. He just happened to like her. I think he saw her and went, hubba, 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 hallelujah. Like he's really keen. And he showed her extended kindness and said, listen, I'm going to get my harvester guys and harvester girls to look. Don't look anywhere else. You can stay gleaning here. Because she was a beggar. Like I promise you, they had absolutely nothing to bless themselves with. They were working subsistence-wise And what would happen is the farmers would harvest in a circle, and it would leave the corners for those that had nothing themselves. So here's this little Ruth. She's in a foreign country, honoring her mother-in-law, and she's picking up stuff, the scraps. She's a beggar. She's a beggar. He invites her to step up to the family table and says, we're going to have some lunch with us. There's fresh water there. Drink what you like. We're going to protect you. Every time she went back to her mother-in-law, she had like stacks of grain. And then her mother-in-law has an idea. Sneaky. She says, once Boaz has had food and a few reds or non-alcoholic grape juice, depending on your theology, and he's feeling pretty content, sneak onto the threshing floor, that's my sneak kind of thing, lay down at his feet and uncover his toes, uncover his feet. And I don't know whether that's a euphemism or whatever, but anyway, so he wakes up, who's that? It's Ruth. Basically, there was a proposal, and we read the story. Now, here's the thing. The beggar, like the mentality of a beggar, the only way was to glean around the edges. She's every part a beggar. She's got a beggar mentality. She's got a beggar expectation. Through the prophetic pivot that she made, God made the beggar not only welcome at the family table, God made the beggar an owner of the entire field that she started begging at. And so often, if we don't shed that beggar mentality, we'll see a multiply legacy offering opportunity. We go, I'm a beggar. I need the money. And that's not about how much money you've got. That's about a mindset. That's about a mindset. Think about the big shift that had to happen for her to walk down the aisle to Boaz, the owner of the field, when she'd first met him as a beggar. See, when we open our hearts up to prophetic pivots, God opens his promises up because we're aligning our plan and purpose with his. When we want to see our destiny, our promise fulfilled, it doesn't start with the fulfillment in mind. It started for her, for Ruth, of serving her mother-in-law. In fact, that reputation of faithfulness and loyalty had gone before her. And he said, I know you. I've heard of the reputation. Now, here's the other thing. He was a wealthy dude that we would never even hear about. And he sowed kindness. No one saw. In fact, it was kind of against he sort of said, hey, don't tell anyone you're on the threshing floor. He extended kindness to her, which opened her heart and eventually put him in the lineage of Jesus. So on both sides, they are sowing I love these black t-shirt guys. Here's what I love about black t-shirt guys. The only times often we know they're there is when something goes wrong up here. And yet the setup team, they were here at 6 o'clock or 6:30 this morning. The incredible breakdown team, they'll be here after you when you're having lunch this afternoon. And the production guys and girls keep it all going. I love that because they are serving God in the darkness, literally black t-shirts. Yeah, I can only see them if they smile. We were having dinner last night. I want to talk about this just for a few minutes. We're having dinner last night. I said, how are your teams going? I don't know any answers. I just ask good questions. How are your team? They said, honestly, fantastic. Our C groups are going great. Our C teams going great. I said, you got any areas of need? And they said, well, you know what? Until we get our permanent facility, which is still very much in the heart of the church, not that it's going to be a fancy facility for the sake of having a fancy building. It's a barn to house the thousands of people that God's yet to reach. Come on. So he said, so for now, it'd be so good if we got great leaders in the teams, if there'd be a bunch of people step up and say, you know what, I'm happy to get up. one weekend every 2 or 3 and engage in that setup. I'm happy to be part of the incredible breakdown team. I don't know everything, but I'd like to learn some stuff on the production stuff. There's something about sowing into, and as has already been said, and I love the way you said this, Pastor Chris, that, was it Joel? Joel? See, the outward thing is doing the setup or the breakdown or the production. But the actual, what that does as a vehicle is put you in a crew, put you in a posse, put you in a bunch of men or ladies that are saying, we're gonna sow sacrificially. I'm gonna put the alarm on rather than sleep in till the last minute and just crawl to church. I'm actually, and you know what? I don't want to be a consumer anymore. I want to be a contributor. You know, you've got gifts. And before we work out specifically where your place is, serve somewhere. I think some people think their greatest gift is their butt. What do? Well, I sit. Thank God for comfy seats. That's my gift. Occasionally I stand, have a bit of a worship. Lifted my hand up today. He pushed me on it. Tipped God in the offering. And prayed for our pastors last August. So my gift is my butt. God's given me a good one. Sits well on those comfy seats. I'm jesting, obviously. But in some cases, not much. You have got more than you think you've got. The way to open up to all of the areas that you would love to serve in is to just get serving. And so I want to even right now, and I'm going to break into a message. I can't help myself. I just love people that are on a search for Jesus. It's not so long ago. Some of you have heard our story. My wife and I are both first-generation Christians. You know, it don't take me long to remember the fact that I was rolling out of bars at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 nights a week, just off my face. It was a lack of purpose. And that was months ago now. I'm feeling a lot better and really come back to Jesus. And that may not be your story. You may have been brought up in a Christian home, but you don't know Jesus. You might be a churchgoer, and if you're honest, you don't know Jesus. You might have prayed a prayer one time, and man, your heart was red hot for Him. But if you're honest with yourself, you've slipped out of that relationship. There's something about prizing the things that are legacy, the things that are eternal. And so I'm going to pray for everyone here, just in a few moments' time, that would say, Michael, you nailed it. That's where I'm at. I'm bumping along the bottom spiritually. And the truth is, you can stay that way. Free country. No one's going to crash tackle you at the door. Said, I was sensing God saying something, you didn't respond. No, it's up to you. But hey, why would you? I want to throw the gauntlet of challenge down in a few moments' time for everyone who says, Michael, honestly, I can have a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the thing I prize the most is the intimate relationship that I can enjoy with the creator of the universe. Come on, are you kidding? That's crazy. That's crazy. Before I do that, I think every one of you has got one of these. Can I get everyone to get one of these out, please? They're just a little connection card, the black on the top. Everyone, lift it high. Okay, I want you just to look at it for a minute. Now this is not a spiritual document. It's just a little black and white kind of deal. Let us get connected with you. But I really want to bring to a point, put works to your faith. You might say, well, you know, I'm serving God during the week, but there's not a whole lot I have to do on a Sunday. And yeah, I could get up a bit early on a Sunday morning and be part of the setup team. I'm prepared to sacrifice. I don't know how often they're on, whether they're on every couple of weeks or whatever. That would be a major contribution to bless your pastors right now and to actually help these incredible guys that are leading these teams. And so I want to throw the challenge, the gauntlet down. All you need to do is give us your name, a contact number or email, and then on the back, simply, it's a couple of folded arms here tightly. It's okay. Production, setup. In fact, just production, any of them, and we'll connect with you this week. Is that okay? This week. and work out how we can actually get you moving. You're not signing up till Jesus comes back? Yes, make a commitment to 2030. That'd be good. A decade. I think that's God will be happy about. No, just sign up for 6 or 12 months and just give it a start. I think you'll find as you get into that crew, something powerful happens. And so do that now, and then at the end of the service in the offering, just tear that little black bit off at the bottom, the white bit, sorry, and drop that into the offering container. I was over in Perth, Western Australia, and I was playing golf with a business guy there. And this is the context of this is Seeds of Legacy and what we really value. And Greg was a South African guy. We got on like a house on fire. And he was in church the next day. And I was doing an illustration, which I'm not doing this morning. And I'd bought a few copy watches. I don't know whether that's legal overseas. And they were, a couple of bucks each. And so I was talking about how sometimes we can trash time. We're stewards of time, stewards of our talent, stewards of our treasure, our money. And I've talked about both of those really today. And so what I was going to do was give Greg, I said, get Greg to sit in the front row. And because it was a large, flat-floored auditorium, maybe 1,000 people in it, I went down the stairs and had a camera following me so they could have it up on the big screen, what was going on. And I said to the production manager, hey, give Greg the copy watch, get him to put it on, and I'll come over, and we'll do a little bit of theater, and I'll say, nice watch, and I'll smash it with the mallet, the hammer that I've got. Put it in a, so it was just a bit of fun. And then I was going to say, I'm a professional. We laid it all up. You can imagine. So I came over to Greg and we were bantering a little bit. And I said, hey, Greg, how's your golf? Hey, nice watch. You obviously didn't get that playing golf, right? So blah, blah, blah. We're talking about that. And I said, hey, give me your watch, Greg. And he was kind of reluctant. I went, oh, you're good. You're good. So he undid his watch and put it in. I put it in a little black velvet kind of thing. And I lifted it up and I went, and everyone, I said, don't worry, I'm a trained professional. I've done this before. It's all okay. Smash, 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 smash. I open it up. It's the screen on the watch is smashed. So I then said to, made the point and all was well. I got back into the green room afterwards, and there was a rumor going around that I'd smashed Greg's $7,000 Rolex. And I overheard someone sharing that with some degree of consternation to the pastor, Pastor Jared Keehan, who planted Hillsong London, among other things. And I said, no, guys, what actually happened was I gave the production manager a dummy watch. People thought it was his watch, but actually, and they went, Pastor Michael, Greg forgot to put it on. He had the dummy watch in his top pocket and his $7,000 Rolex on his arm that you smashed. You're feeling uncomfortable. Imagine how I felt. So I went to Greg and I said, Greg, I had a sledgehammer in my hand. Like, you're a smart guy. You run a business. Like, you didn't come down the last shower. I wasn't going to dong myself on the head with that. Like we talked about that, and I said, why didn't you interrupt me? And I was just winding into a kind of a moment with God to help people receive Jesus. And he says, Pastor, he was South African, Pastor, he said, why would I let a stupid watch interrupt you in the middle of sharing the greatest message of all time? I too clapped. I was very glad that was his attitude. I don't know whether we've got a shot. Oh, there it is, yes. So, it's about value. When we think about multiply, we think about the blessing of God. There's moments of sowing that we get, moments of opportunity that we get, which is not for today, but it certainly is about opening up of your heart, opening up of, yes, God, you're a student here. You can start. There's a pivotal prophetic moment for you. You say, I haven't got any money problems. I haven't got any money. There's something that's going to shift. When we built our building, I think $13 million, beautiful, 1,100 seats, I know what it's like as a pastor where you're leading the charge in faith. And I just want to really appeal to you to really understand that God wants to open your eyes to the legacy, to the generational multiplication that is real for you in your life. You can do that through serving. Can you give me a D? I'll sing this last little bit, okay? But maybe we can compose a song together. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, listen, where do you stand with Jesus? I remember what it was like. It was 37 years ago now, but I remember what it was like coming into a church service like this. I had kind of a religious background, but I honestly didn't know God. I didn't know. It didn't mean I didn't pray every now and then, even read that. I was not engaged in a vital, oh God, you're amazing type relationship with Him. And that's God's best for you. Right across this house, I don't need to prophesy to know there's many of you and you're bumping along the bottom spiritually. Younger people, mature folks here, God's heart is so towards you right now. He's so on this moment. And yet there may be others here and you've been bought by a friend. Maybe you heard some of the stuff's going on at Citizens and you've rocked in today. Honestly, we're so glad. I haven't been there many times myself. So have a coffee afterwards, eh? Today's your day, friend. And I believe if you would open your heart up to the wonder of what God has got for you, you would never, just like I have, not regretted it one day in my life. Not one day. And that doesn't mean you've got to do what I'm doing. God's got something very special for you. But it starts with you opening your heart up and aligning in a prophetic kind of pivot way. Like align your heart with what God's best for you. Your best life in God is always going to outstrip anything you can imagine yourself.